In this video, we're going to be looking at how to add a spotlight effect to our presentation. So here we have Hogwarts Student Representative Council. Now, for these type of presentations, what I could do is I could come down to the bottom. On the pen tool, I can select the laser pointer, and then I can draw attention to somebody by doing this circular action, and we can talk about Cynthia as the chairperson, or we can chat about Jeffrey being the deputy chairperson, and then the people that report to Jeffrey, and then the same thing with Walter and the people that report to Walter within the Student Representative Council. But this can be a little bit cumbersome and a little bit annoying for our viewers to watch because of the movement of the mouse the whole time. So what we can do is we can add a spotlight effect, which looks like this. So now the advantage of this is that we are now drawing attention to Cynthia by having everything else fade out. And then once we have chatted about Cynthia being the chairperson, we can then move through to Jeffrey and chat about Jeffrey being the deputy or one of the deputy chairpersons. And then we can talk about the people that report to him, such as Gilbert Schneider and then Bradley Velez. From there, we can talk about the second deputy person being Walter Stevens. And we can go through like that. And then at the end, it fades off so we can see the full picture in clear. To make this type of presentation, we can do this in two ways. I will select the original slide, and then with the keyboard shortcut, go Ctrl-D to duplicate it. And you'll see why shortly. For this video, we're going to be looking at two ways of creating the spotlight effect. The first way we're going to be doing this is through animations, and this can be more of the tricky way of creating this. And then the second way we're going to use is through the use of transition, specifically focusing in on the morph transition. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add on a nice big rectangular block that covers most of the slide. So what I'll do is I'm going to go to Insert, under Shapes, I'm going to select the rectangular shape. And because I'm covering up a lot of the presentation and I don't quite know what is being covered, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to format the shape just so I can see what's going on behind. I'm going to change the transparency up to about 75% for now, just so I can come back in and I can now actually add, add the spotlight circle over Cynthia, because that's who we're going to start with. I'm going to go to Insert and I'm going to select Shapes again, and I'm going to select the oval shape. I'm going to find the centermost point of Cynthia's picture. Whilst holding the Control and the Shift key, I'm now going to press my left mouse button and I'm going to draw the circle. Alright, and the reason why I use the Control and Shift option is that it actually allows me to create a perfect circle from a central point. And I'm just adjusting this just so it looks a little bit neater. Okay, there we go. I'm going to drop that transparency down. I'm going to select the original image and I'm going to change that transparency. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select both options, both shapes, and this is something you will have to play with on your device. Now for me, I will use the combine option and it will combine the two shapes together. On some devices, you might end up using the subtract option like it's doing now for me. Okay. And now I can go ahead and I can change the color of this, and I'm going to change it to a black color, and I don't want an outline. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the transparency up to 45% because I've played around with this before, and the 45% option works well. So now to add this animation, and because the animation we wanted to follow a particular line, we're going to use a motion path animation. So we go to Animations, on the More option, we select, under Motion Path, we select Lines. Now the default is for our animation to move up and down. As you can see, it's indicated here by the green dot and the red dot. The green dot is where we want it to start. And then if I press the red dot and I click and I hold it, you can see it's going to give us a pseudo finish point by that circle shape as indicated here. And what I want to do is I want to adjust this now so it goes and it finishes on Jeffrey. And I will select and let go, and we can now see that the motion is going to move down to Jeffrey. But now we want to go ahead and continue doing this on the rest of the slide. So I won't go here and select an animation from here. I'm going to go add animation. I'm going to select another line from the motion path animation. And now this is where the fun begins. Because now we've got to select the starting point, which is where the endpoint of Jeffrey was. And what I'm doing is I'm using the red marker as my reference point from our previous animation. Then the same thing, I'll move the finalized option to match Gilbert. As trying to follow the snap grid lines, which is not what we want, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to adjust my view. Okay, so now that I've got the start of my motion moving from Cynthia to Jeffrey to Gilbert, what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed this section of the video up whilst I create the motion path for the rest. Okay, now we're back. We've got our motion paths. We can see that we've created the path movement. Now, obviously, we want to create that fade in effect and that fade out effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to go animation pane, and we can see that the motion paths are evident to us in this animation pane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go add animation, and I'm going to use the entrance option of fade in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the duration to 2 seconds, and I'm going to now reposition this at the top. And what I do is I leave everything with regards to the animation start option on click. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click add animation, and as an exit I'm going to use the fade exit animation, and again I'm going to change this to 2 seconds. If we go into our presenter view, we can now see that it fades in and the spotlight effects now takes place. Alright, and as you saw, with regards to the animation, it can be quite lengthy and rather challenging. There is a quicker way. As you saw earlier, I created this duplicate slide. And in this duplicate slide, we're going to be using the morph transition to give us the same effect. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to insert, and again I'm going to add a large rectangular shape that covers everything. Again, format shape, and I'm going to adjust the transparency just so I can see what's going on in the background. I'm going to zoom in because again Cynthia is our starting point. And we're going to go insert, we're going to go shapes, and we're going to use the oval option. And again, with the shift and the control key, I'm going to create my perfect circle, adjust the transparency just so I can get the effect looking just right, which is about there. Adjust that transparency down, and then the same thing with the main square. Select the main square and the circle. We go to shape format. And we're going to look for and you see this time around the subtract option didn't work for me, so I'm going to go combine. I'm going to change the shape fill to black, no outline, and again we're going to change the transparency to 45. Alright, now this is where the fun comes in. On this slide here, let me just make a section break, call this morph transition. Alright, I'm going to duplicate this slide, All I do is drag the shape, reposition it over Jeffrey, get it to exactly where I want it so it looks nice and neat, and do the same thing for the rest of our student representative body. And as you can see, this is going a lot quicker, and I can be a little bit more precise. Okay. And this is exactly why we go for a square way bigger than our actual presentation size. Just because that there might be some spillage because of the size, and we don't want that coming into our main presentation. And then lastly, or second to last thing we're going to be doing is covering Lisa Flynn, the spotlight effect. And then the final one is creating a duplicate and removing the shape. And what we'll do now is we'll come, I made a boo-boo. Let's create a duplicate and push that to the top. Okay, and we now select all the slides and we go transitions and we make use of the morph transition. And if I go into presenter view, it fades in and it works just as beautifully as the animation option. But what would take you normally a good couple of hours to animate carefully and precisely, we have done this with the morph transition in a couple of minutes. I'm hoping you found this tutorial useful on how to spotlight. Please feel free to watch anything else on this channel, and don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button, and feel free to share the content.